and see if that thing, whatever we're talking about, is right for you. It's ultimately your decision, but you may need to find out if that's right.
And we are part of your research process. Wink, wink.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So you have a whole you have a bunch of different experts, and then you choose. I kind of like that, and then you decide what works best for you.
All right, I'm excited for this topic today. Am I unmuted? Okay. Because we're going to be talking about the benefits of sunshine and red light therapy. And Dr. Saunders you did write this article, right, Dr. Saunders?
I did.
Yes. Okay.
Guilty as charged.
Guilty as charged. Okay. And I'm excited about this. I am seeing friends on my Instagram stories who are holding up these little red light things up to their faces while they're sitting in their chairs. Or I now know, like, we have a place here where I am, it's called 3 Degrees sauna, infrared saunas, and you can add the red lights to them. And I am just seeing this everywhere. And so I'm excited to talk about this and learn more. So maybe we could start with this. What is the difference between going outside, getting sunshine, and using red light therapy?
Okay. Gosh, it's so nice. Look at the article. The article is really interesting because there's some pictures in there that tell you what electromagnetic frequency is. So we talk about EMF. Oh, I got the EMF, and that the EMF is getting into my brain, and I can't function, and all of that stuff. Well, EMF is a whole lot of energy. It's just energy that's all over the place, and depending on the frequency of that energy, it has a lot of different effects. And so if you have an EMF that is a radio wave, radio waves have a very long frequency, very long wavelength, and so it's like meters long, right? They're really long, to kilometers long, really super long wavelengths, and those they penetrate through anything, because there's nothing that's that big that's going to stop them from going, so that they go right past anything, because everything else is so small. And then as the wavelengths get smaller, you get from radio waves, you get into radar, you get into microwaves. Micro is the real small radio waves. And then microwaves are millimeters, right? And then you get down into light, which is nanometers. And the red light is like 700 nanometers. And up to the infrared is about 1,000 nanometers. Well, that's 1,000 nanometers is 1 millimeter. So those are the millimeter wavelengths. In order to stop that, that's great. See, you can see that 700 nanometers. That's the and then infrared, you're getting into 1,000, and then you see these radio waves are like, the broadcast bands are 1 kilometer. They're huge wavelengths. And so the ones we see are visible light is this 400 nanometers to about 750 nanometers. That's what we can see. And then when you get tiny, tiny wavelengths, that's ultraviolet light. That's where the wavelengths are so small and they're going so fast, they immediately release all their energy as soon as they touch a molecule, because they're as small as molecules, and because they're that small, that they release all their energy. And that's why people get burns from ultraviolet light. You get sunburn because the light, the electromagnetic frequency, the EMF, is releasing all of its energy right there on the surface of your skin, and it burns. Whereas if you get to the other end of it, the infrared end, It's not releasing it all at once. It's kind of gradually releasing as it goes into you. And so it penetrates through your skin and goes into the deeper tissues, and it can go in for a millimeter, 2 millimeters, 3 millimeters. It's not really very much. When you get to the far infrared, you can get into several centimeters into your body, but the energy is being gradually released. Well, there's one thing that happens that's really important, and that is that that light, that electromagnetic frequency, can stimulate certain enzymes, certain molecules in your body to do things. And I know it sounds weird, but it does. The light does change things. It turns on your ability to make energy, for example. So you go outside in the sunshine, and the light from the sun is penetrating your skin. It's going through, your head. It's getting into your brain. It's getting into your tissues, your muscles, and it turns on your. They're called chromophores. They're enzymes that are in the mitochondria that are making energy. So you actually get more energy from sunshine. Not that the light is giving you energy, and not like sugar or anything like that. It's the energy of turning on the ability to make more ATP, and that's what it does, and that's a real thing. So, and you can see that penetration. So, for example, have you ever like looked at the sun through your fingers, and you can see like the shadow of the bones in your fingers, and then outside you can see the red coming through. Well, that red is because those red wavelengths penetrate, and all the shorter wavelengths they release their energy, and they get absorbed by the tissues, but the red doesn't get absorbed by the tissues right away, so it goes through. And that's the same thing that happens in your body. So that's why the red light therapy, that's why red light is important. Blue light therapy would be a totally different thing. That would be right on the surface of your skin, because that's going to be absorbed very quickly into your skin, because it's a shorter wavelengths and the molecules will absorb it immediately. So that's why red light. And so one day my daughter comes home with this face mask, and it's hilarious. I wish I had a picture of it. And it's a mask, and it looks like Iron Man mask, right? Because it's got the little slits for the eyes, and the little slit for the mouth, and the little nose. And she turns it on, and there's all this light coming out, this red light coming out of her, the slits in her eyes and everything. And it is hilarious. I took a picture of it. I was just looking for it. I couldn't find it. Anyway, so it was for acne. It was for an acne treatment. They say it works. So I looked it up, and I'm like, hey, you know what? There's something to it. There's actually a real thing there that you can treat inflammation. You can turn on the anti-inflammatory systems of your skin by putting this red light on there. Yeah, there it is.
A lot of different ones.
Exactly. Yeah, well, that's kind of similar to the pictures that I had of my daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so is that a real thing? It turns out, yeah, that's a real thing, that you can actually treat acne and skin conditions of many different kinds with red light therapy. Is what goes deep into the skin to heal wounds. So when I was working in a nursing home, I started looking at that because we had a lot of wound care. We had diabetic wounds and chronic venous stasis ulcers, and that like the legs, and people from swelling, and they've got these lesions in their back from pressure sores, all these lesions that are being treated. And all they do is go around. We had a team, the wound care team, nurses, all they did was go around and put Band-Aids on everything. Bandages. If it was really big, they'd put a really big one on, and then they just go around and change the bandages. And that's all they did. And guess how many of them healed? Pretty much none of them. I don't remember a single one of them ever healing. So we're talking years of lesions on here. So I thought, well, as I was doing the research for my daughter's little acne thing, I'm going, hey, wait a minute. This has been known for a long time. 1920. So 100 years ago, a man won a Nobel Prize for finding out that red light would cure or help heal wounds. And these are chronic, like pressure sores, chronic wounds that people had in their skin. And he won the Nobel Prize, and it's still called investigational. They're still saying it's investigational. So I actually bought one of those things that you see, one of these red lights. I bought one because the nursing home wouldn't get one. So I gave it to the nurse. I said, okay, 15 minutes every other day. When you change the dressing, just hold this on for 15 minutes. And it has to be pretty close, this far away. I showed them exactly how to do it. And they wouldn't do it because 15 minutes is too long. We don't have time for that. Because if we have 20 wounds, we got to change all the dressings, and we got to be done at this period of time, and 15 minutes on each one. That's an hour, an extra hour for 4 of them. There's no way. That's just not going to happen. So they didn't get any wound care. So I tried another way. I started doing some research on SunShine, and it turns out that SunShine has all that infrared light, and it's really good. And there was this movie I watched a long time ago called The Other Side of Heaven. It's about this missionary guy that goes to Tonga, and it's really hot there. So he slept with his feet uncovered, and the rats ate the bottom of his feet. They ate the skin off the bottom of his feet. And so he had these like open wounds on the bottom of his feet. He couldn't walk or anything. And they didn't have a doctor there. They didn't have any wound care, no wound care nurses, nothing. So he had to go down to the beach and lay down in the sand and have his feet exposed to the sun. And that's how they healed the wounds. And they healed. And he was perfectly fine, walked around for years and years. Well, many years later, he got I think it was basal cell carcinoma or squamous cell carcinoma on the bottom of his feet. And the dermatologist said, what the heck? You're the only one I've ever seen with squamous cell carcinoma on the bottom of your feet. How in the heck did that happen? This is a sun lesion. Nobody gets sunshine on the bottom of their feet. He goes, oh, I know where that came from. Years and years ago, I was in Tonga and I had these lesions and we exposed the sun. The sun healed his feet, but there were two issues there. One is the rats ate the bottom of his feet and they get infected. And so the SunShine has ultraviolet light and blue light that stimulates the immune system and kills bacteria. And so he did not get an infection. That's number one. Number two, the infrared light from the SunShine penetrates into the wounds, turns on the wound care, and increases the collagen production so that he makes the soles of his feet back again. So the SunShine was the perfect thing for him. So it turns out, though, that he didn't have to expose it for hours and hours. He reported being there for hours and hours. But it just 15 minutes, a couple of times a week or 3 times a week, about every other day, is an adequate amount to heal wounds. So the ultraviolet light helped for preventing infection. So do you know ultraviolet light is currently used for that? If you go to a lot of the wherever they have water purification systems, they'll have like a crystal. They run the water through the crystal, and it's an ultraviolet. They have ultraviolet all the way around, and it will kill everything. There's no fungus, no bacteria, no viruses can be in the water because the ultraviolet light will sterilize the water essentially. So that's what it did to his wounds. The ultraviolet light from the sun sterilized his wounds, and then the infrared turned on the collagen production to heal it. And that's what it did. So in the nursing home, in spite of me paying for one of those red light treatments, it never got used. And they're still doing the exact same thing they've always done. They're changing dressings on the same people that they were 10 years ago when I worked there. Nothing's changed.
Wow. I know I have my grandfather actually turned 98 last month. And when he was going through, I think some neuropathy type stuff, he actually went to a chiropractor, and they did give him a little red light like box, and he would take that home and use that on, I think it was maybe on his feet, but that he also would use it on his back. He had back pain, and so he would just set that behind his back as well, which I thought was really cool. I kind of would like one. I could use it
Yeah.
at a lot of different places.
Yeah,
So you
it works for back pain. It's really interesting how when you turn on the energy systems, how things start working, and they've even done some research on these helmets that they have with the near infrared or red light. That penetrate into the brain and improve Alzheimer's disease actually better than the drugs that they use. So they compare them head to head. The light works better than the drugs.
Wow.
And in your article, you even said Florence Nightingale wanted to design hospitals with open air so that they could so the patients could get out in the sun to actually do the healing.
Yeah, so they can have sunshine come in the hospitals. Yeah, I read that. She the sunshine, the ultraviolet from the sunshine, actually gets rid of all of those bacteria. So in the old days, when they had these really thick-walled, tiny windows, hospitals that never saw the light, they were in terrible places. Like, people were dying of infections left and right. It was a horrible place until Florence Nightingale came in and cleaned them up and said, "Hey, we need some light in here." And really fix things up. And part of that was the light.
One of the really cool things that you had mentioned in this article is that red light has been shown to help with hair loss. I find that very interesting. It says a lot of it may work for male pattern hair loss, not alopecia necessarily, but that's really interesting. How is that
Yeah.
working? Just
Okay,
stimulating
so
that again?
alopecia areata is where you have an autoimmune disease against the hair follicles, so you actually lose the hair follicles. And the light therapy doesn't seem to fix the autoimmune disease. But male pattern baldness is just a blood flow issue. You have decreased blood flow to the hair follicles, so they don't make hair. So if you increase the blood flow, then the hair starts growing again. And so you can put red light on there. And so what they've shown is that that the hair can be thicker. You know how you have that real thin, like real super thin hair? If with the red light, the hair got thicker. That's what happened. The hair follicles themselves, or the hair shaft got thicker.
Interesting. So go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just wondering, how is it that blood flow gets restricted for some people to the hair follicles?
The male pattern baldness is DHT, dihydrotestosterone. And that's one of the effects that it has. It decreases the flow of blood. Actually, stress does it too. Stress causes constriction of blood vessels, and people can lose their hair. They actually turn gray at the stress because they make more hydrogen peroxide. And if you've ever bleached your hair, what do they bleach it with? Usually hydrogen peroxide. Well, that's what your body uses to bleach your hair when you get gray hair.
So losing or your hair turning gray from stress is a real thing. I thought that was only in like books and cartoons. That is hilarious. Okay, good to know.
I was going to ask, how does it work on pain? You mentioned back pain, and in the article also mentions, I think, like arthritic pain in your hands, or not in the book, in the article.
Yeah. So that's interesting that the pain, a lot of the pain that we experience is a lack of blood flow. There's not enough blood flow. So the muscles in your back, for example, will spasm up because they just don't have enough energy to relax. It takes a lot of energy to relax muscles. And if you don't have enough blood flow, you build up lactic acid, and it gets pain, kind of chronic pain, and then spasms when it's like really painful. Well, if you dilate the blood vessels and get good blood flow, it washes out all the lactic acid, and it allows more energy to be made. And remember the other part, like with arthritis, it's not necessarily blood flow. It is turning on the energy systems so that healing can take place. So that's where the red light turns on the mitochondria that are making energy.
Very cool. All right, let's talk about this one. Weight loss. Red light therapy and weight loss.
Okay. The answer is no. Red light therapy does not. So people are getting that, like these whole beds, and they're red light beds, and they're laying down and but they're 15 minutes twice a week, or every other day kind of thing, or 20 minutes every other day, to lose weight. But that's not the way it works. What they did with the red light therapy, when they put it around like one thigh, and after weeks of treatment, the one thigh that they had the red light therapy was smaller, like significantly smaller than the thigh that was not treated. So they actually did some research to show that you could shrink an area by using red light therapy. But what's really interesting is the fat from the thigh, it does get dissolved, really only because the energy systems have been turned on. But it goes somewhere else in your body, and actually, so you don't lose the fat out of your body, you just change it from being in that place to a different place. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So Rita said several years ago, wrist hurting, physician used light therapy on certain parts, on certain pinpoints inside of palms, etc. It really helped. Would this help with neuropathy pain or other pain like acupuncture?
Oh, great idea. Yes. Yes, it does help neuropathy, like acupuncture. Because of the increased blood flow, because of turning on the energy systems. That's what the problem is in neuropathy. Diabetic neuropathy, for example, it's a lack of blood flow and a lack of energy production, and that's what the light does. The problem is the light can only penetrate so far. So it's like up to a centimeter or maybe 2 centimeters into the body, and then you get less and less. And here's the thing, though, that if you think, well, we'll just do a higher intensity light, like laser therapy, and get it to penetrate really deep, and it will. But it turns out more is not better. That a higher intensity light is not better. There's a point at which you get a little bit causes stimulation, and a lot causes suppression. So there's a perfect amount of light that you can have. So that's why red light therapy is often called cold laser therapy, because they're using a low intensity laser instead of a high intensity, because that's what's required to turn it on.
Very interesting. All right, I want to see if we have some more questions that have come in here. Let's see. Do we have recommendations for what red light machine to buy?
No, it does make a difference. It's not like anyone will do, because the wavelength, it turns out, is somewhat important. So you got to get the right wavelength, and it depends on what you want to accomplish. So before I got the one for the nursing home, I did a lot of research. I looked around. Okay, this is the 740 nanometer. This is the 760 nanometer. This is the 710 nanometer, and they say this is better. And I did research on what I wanted to do with that wound healing, as opposed to other people might use it for to try to make their skin plumper and get rid of their wrinkles, which, by the way, didn't really work. So there are the ones that say that you can put on for preventing wrinkles or getting rid of wrinkles. That the studies are really sketchy on that, and not really good. But the other part for the wound healing, it's pretty good. So so get the right intensity and the right and I'm supposed to be able to tell you what the right one is, but that depends on what you want to accomplish, what you're doing with it.
Sure. Near where I live, there is a tanning salon, and they offer red light therapy. And so you go in it like a tanning bed, but all the bulbs are red light. I'm really curious to know like what kind of lights they're using, but I thought that's kind of interesting, kind of nice. You can lay there and sleep and be in red lights. So.
Yep.
Or is it better to go onto the beach and sleep?
Do you know what? You could do this essentially the same thing. And here's the thing about when they did research comparing the sun to the red light therapy, they said, well, the sun has ultraviolet and you wouldn't want to be in the sun because that can cause burns and all that. But if you think about it, red light therapy, your treatment is only going to be 15 to 20 minutes. So if you were on you go out in the sun and lay on the beach and you're 15 minutes on one side, 15 minutes on the other side, you're done. And that's equivalent to going into a red light bed or a tanning bed.
Much cheaper also. Unless you're in South Dakota like me. And
I was going to say, yeah.
It's a little bit harder to be exposed well outside.
That's true. That would be actually, but you could do it. Yeah.
I could. I don't know if I have it in me. I don't think I'm built for it. I don't know if I'm built for it.
Go out in the snow in your bikini and lay out in the sun.
The neighbors would appreciate it either.
Lay on the snow.
It's like cold water therapy and sun exposure wrapped into one.
Yeah, there you go.
The worst nightmare. Okay. Alice says, how effective is sunlight that passed through a window?
Oh, they've done that research. It's good. It still works. In fact, because the windows block some amount of the ultraviolet, but they don't block hardly anything from the infrared. So yeah, you could, in South Dakota, you could be like inside a window, the sun streaming through your window, and just lay there in the sun, and that would be just fine.
All right, this is good to know. All right, Alice also says some lights you can buy don't have red light. I think they're for seasonal affective disorder, lack of sunlight. Are all of these the same, or is the red light different?
The red light is different. So some of those are full spectrum lights. And the full spectrum lights is to give you everything from the violet to the red, and everything in the spectrum. So it'll have some red light, but the amount of red light is going to be a lot less in proportion. The intensity of the red light is going to be a lot less than if you do a red light treatment. So they are different.
All right. Let's see here. Saw another message come through. Okay, let's do this. Sib had said the ultraviolet light from the sun and the seawater would have healed him up even faster. Talking about the guy on the beach, or the guy who laid on the beach to heal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Judy said, I had an episode over the weekend. The top of my feet started burning like hot iron was laying on my feet. It's been 5 days now, still bright red and burning. I did eat at a Magnolia restaurant the night before. I did not know if it was a food reaction from some of the sauces I used. Ate food around 7 in the evening, and feet started burning very bad around 4 the next day, 4 p.m. Could you explain what might be going on?
Gosh, it would be hard to attribute that to food, to something you ate the night before. But burning like a hot iron, but you didn't get a sunburn, it's not like that. Or you're not sitting near a radiant heater or something that's radiating heat. Because if it's red, that means the blood vessels are dilated. That means there's inflammation. If it's both feet, it's unlikely to be an infectious disease, like an abscess or something like that that's causing that, or cellulitis. But that's still not out of the question. If it's tender, you can get hot, burning, swollen, tender from an infectious disease. Or if you have some kind of trauma, if it got hit or slapped or pinched or something like that, or your shoes rubbed against it or something like that, it could cause the dilation of the blood vessels is what causes the redness of it. So I don't. You can have reactions to, well, food or any environmental allergen that can cause a patch of skin somewhere. I had somebody one time who had a perfectly round lesion right there on his shoulder, and for years. And we found out it was his blood pressure medication was causing it. He was having an allergic reaction to his blood pressure medication, and the only thing he got was this coin lesion right there on his shoulder. So yeah, it's not out of the question that it could be a reaction, but look at other things. Make sure it's not an infection or something rubbing in your shoes or something like that.
I would say my son, I think, used to get that where he would play basketball and run so much, and the tops of his feet, from his shoes just being really tight and then hot, and it would hurt for a long time. So who knows? I also think my first thought is always, did you switch laundry detergents? I think like that too, because sometimes when I do that, it'll do weird things. So something to think about. Okay, Susan said, what are some possible causes of non-restorative sleep? Possible solutions.
Good question.
Yeah, okay. So sleep is a big issue. Sleep is very important. If you don't sleep, you die. That's all there is to it. People who said, I haven't slept in years, that can't be true. They would be dead. Sleep is really, really important for life. So we have to sleep, but getting enough sleep, that's another issue entirely. And so non-restorative sleep means that you have something like sleep apnea. That's an example of non-restorative sleep, where every time you go into deep sleep, everything is so relaxed and shut down that you shut off your airways and you don't breathe. And that goes on for about 30 seconds to a minute. And then all of a sudden, you wake up and start breathing, but you're not aware of being awake. But the point is, the problem is that you're never getting any deep sleep, because every time you go into deep sleep, you stop breathing. So you don't get any restorative sleep. That's the problem. So that is one way of getting non-restorative sleep. And people like that, they say they can sleep 10 hours and wake up tired. And they're sleepy all day long. They're sitting in meetings and falling asleep. They're starting to drive and falling asleep because they didn't get restorative sleep. So that's kind of important. So how do you, what other things could cause non-restorative sleep? Well, there's something called central sleep apnea, or there's other problems with the reticular activating system that can affect your ability to sleep and to get restorative sleep. So what do you do about it? Well, the first thing is to make sure you don't have sleep apnea. So if you're getting non-restorative sleep, if you're sleeping 10 hours and or more, if you're sleeping more than 8 hours and not feeling like you've been restored, that you've gotten enough sleep, then do a sleep study. The sleep study is going to tell you whether you're getting deep sleep, REM sleep, slow wave sleep, and how much of each one, and in what proportion, and when, because when is important too. You should have deep sleep when you first go to sleep, and then REM sleep just before you wake up. And then there's the light sleep is in between that. So doing a sleep study is going to tell you a lot of things. Do you have sleep apnea? That's one. Do you have abnormal sleep patterns? That's two. So do a sleep study. And then as far as the last part of your question was about what do you do about it? Fix the problem. So find the problem, fix the problem. But there are some things that you can think about that if you're just normal and you don't have sleep apnea and otherwise, and you've just had irregular sleep patterns, then you have non-restorative sleep, and that's just because of irregular sleep patterns. So that would be the most common thing in our society, in our culture. Why? Because we have artificial lights. Because we can be on screens all night long. Because we have refrigerators, we can eat all night long. We can have ice cream before we go to bed, and that can create non-restorative sleep. So anything that stimulates the adrenal glands could cause non-restorative sleep, because in the morning, you need your adrenals, your cortisol to go up really high. And then at night, it needs to go down, down, down to practically zero so that you can get restorative sleep. And making sure that happens by having a regular sleep time. I go to bed every night between 9:30 and 10. And that's non-negotiable. Last night, I was at a friend's house with a whole bunch of other friends. We were all chatting. It was having a great time. And my 9 o'clock alarm went off. And I'm like, hey, guys, I got to go. It's my bedtime. They're like, what? It's your bedtime? Yep, got to go. So I went home, got ready for bed. I was in bed before 10 o'clock. Because that's non-negotiable, because I was falling asleep all the time. I actually fell asleep while driving and had an accident. And my wife says, you got to do something about that. And I did not have sleep apnea. And I got a sleep monitor, and I found out I was not getting enough. So going to bed earlier helps me to get enough, because I wake up early in the morning. I just always have. So I had to go to bed earlier, and that fixed the problem. So having a regular time, every night, go to bed by 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock is a really good time, by the way. And then wake up by 6 o'clock, and keep that regular schedule so that over time, your body expects that. And so 9 o'clock comes around, you're starting to get tired because your body is saying, oh, it's almost time to sleep. We don't think about this, but our bodies are on clocks. Everything is on a clock. Your DNA is on a clock. If you want to read about it, Dr. Sachin Panda did a whole bunch of circadian rhythm research. He wrote a book called The Circadian Code. And he talks about it extensively, how everything in your body, the growth of your hair, your brain, what's it called? The lymph system in your brain that cleans your brain out is on a clock. Your liver's on a clock. Your intestines are on a clock. Your stomach's on a clock. Everything is on a clock. And if you don't keep a regular time, then your clocks get messed up. You have to be regular.
This is really good. I'm taking my notes here. I hope you guys are too. I don't use my Whoop band anymore. I'm taking a break from it. And so I can't see the sleep that I'm getting right now. And one thing I thought about the other day was I said that same thing where I said, I don't think I slept at all last night. And I have found from wearing my Whoop band in the past that was completely inaccurate. I was getting actual good sleep, but I would wake up a lot. So anyway, I'm just thinking through some of that. And I kind of think I need to start wearing that Whoop band again to check. But I have too been going to bed a lot earlier than I normally do. It's easier now that the time has changed. It's dark here by 5 o'clock, so that really helps. But when it's light out until 10, nobody wants to go to bed. And you don't want to be the guy at the party that has to leave and everyone throws their chips at you. No, just kidding. No, it's good. You got to make good decisions.
It's Whoop band, WHOOP. Yeah, I have one.
So do I.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have one too. I just am not wearing it.
And some people use the Aura ring, which they put on their index finger. So you might see people with a big band. That also can help you decide whether, or look at your sleep patterns to see whether or not you're getting your deep sleep, restorative sleep, light sleep, and what Dr. Saunders is talking about.
Okay. Ron says in the Healthy Heart Solution Kit booklet, It mentions that supplements are not effective daily after 90 days. And usually after that, you can decrease to 90 days. I have been taking all of the supplements recommended in the booklet for 90 days. Should I decrease to weekly?
Okay, good question. The answer to that is it depends. So most of the time, as we do the same thing over a long period of time, like eat exactly the same food or whatever, which includes supplements, we decrease the absorption. When we have a lot of something, then the body goes, hey, I've got enough of that, just stop it. And it does block absorption. There was a study done on magnesium, for example, which is one of the supplements, that people taking a gram of magnesium had a certain absorption. They absorbed this much. And they drew their blood to find out. So this was actually a real study. And then over a period of 90 days, their absorption declines to about 30% of what they'd started out with. So they were only absorbing a third in only 90 days of what they initially started out absorbing. So it turns out it's better to take like a weekly or biweekly, twice a week or once a week dosing of nutrients. When my kids were growing up, I would give them supplements, but they had their fat soluble supplements like fish oil, vitamin D on Wednesday, and then their water soluble vitamins like vitamin B, vitamin C on Sunday. And so we had a Wednesday, Sunday, but they were different supplements. They were done differently. So if you do something weekly, you're not going to get deficient. You can't get deficient in something if you do it weekly. Now, why would you do it every day for 90 days? Well, because if you have deficiency, you want to build up a level, and every time you take a dose, you get a little bit more, but it doesn't bring you up to normal by the single dose. So it takes a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. So you're building a level. And then there's a peak at which time it levels off. And I don't know when that is. For some people, it's going to be a week. For other people, it's going to be 3 months. So that's why we say 90 days. It's not totally random, but it doesn't necessarily apply to everyone. But you know what? Oh, well, you're not absorbing as much at 90 days if you reached your peak at a week. But that's just the way it is, because it's more expensive to draw your blood every day and find out than it is to just take extra pills for a few months or a few weeks. So that's why. So the answer to your question is yes, generally after 3 months of taking them every day, if you went to once a week, that would be good.
Could you address your deficiency with just one a day, or would it just take longer? If, for example, so Nervala on our website has there are 30 capsules in a bottle, but suggested dose is 2 capsules a day for 60 days. After 60 days, one. So can you just take 1 capsule a day and restore some of the deficiencies?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
1 capsule a day is plenty. And the reason for twice a day is because if you're taking that at the beginning, the assumption is that you have neuropathy, and therefore you have to like take what we call pharmacologic dosing, which is treatment dosing, not just for supplementation. So yeah, the once a week would be supplementation. Once a day, you could increase it. It would just take longer.
Okay.
All right. Rita said several. Already read that one. Just kidding. Anonymous says, do you know much about Bandu detox pads? They appear to help overall general good feeling. Is this a way to get rid of toxins?
I don't know about that specific one. I've seen detox pads over the years. I've researched them. We actually had some in my office at one point because I had a naturopathic doctor that liked to use them. So I researched them, and the detox pads They have a chemical in them that turns colors with some of the chemicals from sweat. So it makes it look like you're oh, look at, you're pulling a whole bunch of stuff out. But the fact is, sweating is detoxing, and it's great. And do you know, this is weird, you guys, that we're talking about infrared, right? Or we're talking about red light therapy, but infrared saunas, people who use them on a regular basis, like more than 5 times a week, or 5 times a week or more, have a 30% decrease in cardiovascular mortality. Mortality, that's death, right? So decreased, like, and 30% is dramatic. You know, you're sweating out toxins and stuff, and your heart rate and your blood vessels are dilating. And so if you think about that, and think about the equivalent of like taking blood pressure medication for 20 years, gives you a 12% decrease in a non-fatal heart attack, and doesn't change your fatal heart attack one bit, not even one. It's the same as if you never took the medication at all. So you know, we put all this emphasis on blood pressure, and everybody goes, "Oh, my blood pressure's high, I'm gonna stroke out." That's not true. That's not even related, and yet we don't think about things that make a huge difference, like sitting in a sauna every day. That's like a really good thing for your body.
All right. I also just sent a message to our team. I said we need a red light recommendation and a partner and a code that we can send you guys. We'll see if we can work on something. I don't know. But when we did some training with our person with our like Whoop bands and kind of had done some health stuff with that, they had a brand that they really liked. So maybe we'll be able to figure out a way, because now I'm convinced I really do need to get some more red light in my life. Instead of driving to a place that sells them, it'd be nice to have one at home. So we'll see. We'll see what we can find out.
Yeah, and you don't have to go out and spend $3,000 on an infrared sauna either. The best infrared sauna is to uh, uh, go out, sit in your car in the sunshine, close all the windows, and just sit there and sweat. And you know what? That's all far infrared, because anything coming through the car is going to be far infrared, and so that is why it's so hot in the car when it's freezing cold outside.
All right. I'm going to be doing that out there on the street in front of my house. It's going to be weird, but
So,
Next webinar will be in our cars.
did you see the neighbor? She's naked sitting in her car out there sweating.
and I live next to the sheriff, so this is going to be really weird. Here we go. Okay. Well, all right. Even with tinted windows, Sherry says.
Yes, even with tinted windows. Yes. That the tinted windows block out the blue light, infrared, but not the infrared. Infrared will go through.
Okay. All right. Let me see here. Oh, you know what I was just thinking of talking about detoxing. A lot of people do those foot baths, and I think we've talked about those before.
Yeah.
Those are, your feet aren't sweating in that, are they? Well, maybe they are. It's warm water.
Yep. Yeah. That's what it is.
So a hot tub, same thing. You're sweating in a hot tub?
Same thing. You're sweating in a hot tub. But don't tell all the other people in the hot tub that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right. That is really gross. Okay. Sounds good. Okay, next question over here in the Q&A. Can I reverse inflammation in my body? And is that what's causing my high blood pressure?
Yes, inflammation can cause high blood pressure. And yes, you can reduce inflammation in your body. The first thing to do is test. So I've had a lot of people come into my office saying, "Oh, I got to get rid of all this inflammation. My blood pressure is high and I got pain here and this, that." And just yesterday I had somebody in the office and we'd done the test. We were going over all her test results. C-reactive protein, 0.3. Sedimentation rate, 2. All of her inflammatory markers were low, like she had no inflammation. So I'm like, "You have no inflammation?" She goes, "That's impossible. I hurt all over the place." So we looked at her other tests. It turns out she has EDS. Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is a problem with connective tissue that your connective tissue is stretchy, but when you stretch it, it's painful. And so this is pain in her connective tissue, but it's not an inflammatory pain. It's not from inflammation. It's from a connective tissue disorder. And the way we knew it is she could take her thumb and put it all the way to her wrist. So we go, woo, you know, and that double jointedness is a sign of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And so we put her on some supplements for Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which in other patients that I've had have worked really well. One of them is called MSM, methylsulfonylmethane, which is interesting. She asked me about DMSO, which is also very helpful, but is generally put on the outside of the body. MSM you can take internally and take care of all of your internal organs and tissues and connective tissue.
Okay, Anonymous says, I have known people whose pressure sores were completely healed with either cod liver oil or vitamin E compress or dressings.
Oh, that's a good point. You know what? My mom did that. Man, years ago. My brother had second and third degree burns on his body from my mom was cooking on the stove, and you know those old fashioned pans with the plug-in pans, and he pulled the cord and pulled the whole thing of the beef stroganoff on top of him, and it burned him pretty bad in some places. And so the doctor at the hospital said, oh yeah, some of these are second and third degree burns. He's probably going to have scars for the rest of his life. And she put vitamin E oil on it, like not the vitamin E oil that you buy from the store that's like this much canola oil and this much vitamin E. She actually got the vitamin E capsules, poked a pinhole in them, and squeezed the pure vitamin E oil out onto the lesions when she was changing the dressings. Wow. And they healed up beautifully, and he's never had any scars, and he's like in his 50s and still has no scars.
That's amazing. Wonder if I could still do that. I used vitamin E oil, but I bet it was not that concentrated. So I think I might have to do that for my knee scars. That's not a bad idea. If it's not too late, we'll see.
Leslie, I looked up what our Whoop coach recommended. It's called Mito, M-I-T-O, red light.
Yes, that's the one I got for the nursing home.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yay. Awesome. Oh, yep. Someone posted it in this group. Okay. I'm going to share that link for you guys. So I'll share it on as well. That's very cool. Okay. Here we go. Oh, we're out of time. Okay. One more question, Dr. Saunders. Let's see.
Need more time.
I know. I'm going in order. I can answer that one later. Judy says, I have a small hemangioma between my nasion and my right eye. Okay. The dermatologist said I need a red light laser to get rid of it. How does that work? Red light laser therapy is not easy to find in my area.
Okay. So red light laser is different. Red light laser absorbs the energy from the light. The hemoglobin in the blood from the hemangioma will absorb the red energy from the red light, and it burns it. But it burns it internally. So the red light goes through the top layer of skin and doesn't burn the top layer of skin, but takes out the hemangioma because that blood will absorb that red light. So that's a different issue entirely. That is a burning treatment, and it's purposely absorbing all of that energy, and that's the way you want it. So, yeah.
Okay, Dr. Saunders, we'll see you next week.
All right,
Thanks
see you next
for being
week.
Here.
Bye.
All right, I'm just going to post this here quick.
And I saw someone was asked, what is the name of the book we mentioned earlier? That is Sachin Panda, who wrote a book called Circadian Codes or Circadian Rhythms. The last name, right? It's S-A-C-H-I-N. Sachin
Panda. Oh, that was okay. The Circadian Code is one of the books. Was that the one we talked about? The Circadian Code. I have it. Let me see.
I remember you read it. Circadian.
I just forgot that too.
Circadian Code. Sachin Panda.
Yes. All
As
right.
the last name Panda as you think it's spelled. Panda. Mhm.
Yes. Okay, there was another question about, hold on here, I'm typing. I just want to remind you guys, you can find information about these webinars and our products at bartonwebinar.com. Use code webinar25, one word, and you will get 25% off anything that you see there. Use code webinar25. Hold on to save. Okay. So there was a question about Dr. Saunders. How do you find people like him? Oh, is Dr. Saunders making a list of practicing doctors like him, like himself, to work with as primary care docs? I don't know that he's done that, but what he does recommend is you honestly go to Google your area or the nearest somewhat bigger city, I guess, and look for functional medicine doctors. Those will be people who will be similar to him. And I know that someone else had said, what's the difference between integrational health and functional health alignment? Actually, Dr. Saunders I feel like he used to say integrated. Oh, he ran an integrated medical center.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if that is more where they incorporated a lot of different types of healing. So they would have like chiropractors and acupuncturists and all of these people all in one area. That was more of the integrative approach. Functional health, I think, was where your real goal is to get to the source of whatever is happening in the body. Is that correct? Am I saying that right? I might not be,
I
but I
think that
think
sounds
so.
right. Yeah.
I
And
think that's
functional
what
health,
doctors.
getting you back to function, not just cover up with medication.
Yeah. Or even sometimes, I know this for myself to be true, as you start to kind of step into the waters of natural health, you start using all these other, you're like, oh, I'm not going to do drugs and I'm not going to do this. And then you start utilizing all of these other things that are on the natural side, but still not necessarily getting to the root cause of what's going on in your body. And I have done that. So
easy trap to
it
fall into.
is, it really is. And lots of money can be spent in that area as well. So that's why Dr. Saunders, sometimes when he says, hey, you got to do this with food, or instead of getting the red light therapy, sit in your car and get him, like that's how he works, which I'm so thankful for. But sometimes I just want him to say, take this, no,
Magic pill.
the
That's what we
easy
want.
thing or the hard thing. The hard, easy thing is what he wants you to do. Okay. Any other questions on here that you saw? Let's see. Would red light therapy help with knee buckling? I think Dr. Sonder would say it depends on what's going on. Why is your knee buckling? That's what he would ask.
Someone asks about the Rife machine for parasites and cancer. So the Rife machine is something based on frequencies. Dr. Saunders might have to answer that one. I don't know. Well, I've actually looked into a Rife machine that's something you put on your body as a coil, and that has different frequencies and different settings to address different health issues. So that's something you could potentially look into. I try to find whether or not those are successful treatments. It's hard to find testimonials about that. It's maybe specifically for the thing you're looking for. Um, again, that might be one of those things you try to figure out you spend money on, or you find someone who might know the information.
Okay. I think that's it for today. Thank you so much, Cheryl. And all of
That's
you come
beautiful.
back next week. We'll see you